by congratulating all of us for being here. We have gotten to a junction where we need to actually ask ourselves some critical questions. And the question of today, which way Southwest, which way Yoruba? And I'll start by saying that one thing that the Yorubas are blessed with is wisdom. This wisdom is facilitated by our culture, our language, our history. And I dare say I have tried to borrow from this wisdom to provide this advice and suggestions and my humble opinion. I borrowed from the wisdom of the old, the wisdom of the young, the wisdom of men and women. And I have coupled together too my own modest experience in life, my upbringing in the Western region, and what I have drawn from my profession. Nigeria is actually a geographical expression that was created by the British to continue its advantages over our resources, advantages over our lands, advantages over the politics of Africa. And so we were actually served lemons. But a wise man once told me that whenever you are served lemons, you make lemonade out of it. And so we started off, for me, Yoruba has always been a nation. If Yoruba were not a nation, we wouldn't be a Nigerian federation, because a federation is a combination of nations. So I personally like to start ab initio from the fact that Yoruba is a nation, but we are part of a larger federation now since 1960, or 1914. Having said that, our nation had a founder in Oduduwa. Many reflected and many have mentioned about Omoluabi. And I say that Omoluabi itself is the father or the guiding spirit of Oduduwa. Wherever our destiny as a nation must be, wherever we must go, we should be heading for the land of Omoluabi, where righteousness reigns and freedom is birthed. Our problem started when, at some point in time of our history, we became vulnerable enough to have some of us sold as slavery during the slave trade. Some people prayed. I mean, people like Samuel Ajayi Crowther were taken off as slaves, a huge number of them within Yoruba land. Some people prayed that slavery should stop. Their prayers were answered with colonialism, which, as far as I'm concerned, was just a little better than slavery. We prayed and we fought that colonialism must stop. Our prayers were answered by a Federal Republic of Nigeria in 1960. Now, barely 3 years after the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the Nigerian nation started experiencing what will have normal human, social, and political differences. Obama one thing that is definitely sure in life is conflict. Another thing that is sure is succession. So 3 years after our independence, we started feeling the pranks of some of these conflicts. And the first principles of state building, which is succession management and conflict management, stared us to the face. Unfortunately, this is where Yoruba started to fail in 1962. This was where Yoruba first failed. A difference within the Yoruba caucus, within the Southwest. We were unable to resolve conflict management between Akitola and Awolowo. And it was also predicated on our inability to manage succession. At the end of the day, our leader, Obafemi Awolowo, was sent to jail. Our deputy leader, turned rival to Awolowo, was brutally murdered. And then, aided by a corrupted military, ethnic triumphalism, corruption, and very poor leadership, we started to slide. We started to lose Omoluabi. We started to lose values. Despite all this, and despite all these our mistakes, we saw flashes of greatness of Yorubas. We saw flashes of greatness of people who will sacrifice themselves. Fajuyi, Fawemi, Fela, a whole raft of them. They came to show us and to remind us that Omoluabi never dies. A spirit never dies. It either goes to sleep or is forgotten, but it never dies. This is the time we need to awaken it. And I'm so glad that the pastor, the previous speaker who spoke before me, has hampered on this. Today, however, Nigeria is a serious failed state. It is a failing state which needs urgent and decisive intervention on several fronts. On the social front, we need to uplift 50 million people out of abject poverty. We need to include at least 25 million people who ordinarily should be educated that are not. We need to grow our economy. We need to be self-reliant on several scores. I tell people, before self-determination, feed yourself. Be self-reliant. Before self-determination, feed yourself. Now, the call to restructuring, therefore, is a valid call. The call for separation too has plenty of merit. But I would dare say, and I would like to agree with Professor Odubanjo, who spoke yesterday, that a lot of calls for separation are born out of frustration and born out of pessimism, while calls for a restructuring, a repair, are born out of the kindle of hope that something can still be done. Either way, whichever way we choose to go, it must be a means to an end. We should not turn the means into an end itself. On the other hand, there are those who believe that the yoke we are currently facing is too much to bear and Nigeria is ill-fated. The bottom line is that in organizing Nigeria, there has been certain failures, 6 decades of persistent downsliding, underpinning a situation whereby there's a structural imbalance because there's massive dislocation of populations, people who have been caught because of colonialism, natural borders become unnatural. How many Yorubas do we know are in Benin Republic with a cut Kwara state, Yorubas out of it, Kogi state? We have all these incongruencies. Our constitution, the 1999 constitution, which is an instrument for oppression and an instrument for slavery and an instrument for perpetual poverty, has two provisions. One provision says that revenue allocation shall be by population. But there is another provision which says that everybody should educate their children. That is chapter 2. Now, while you can enforce the provision which says revenue allocation can be based on revenue allocation can be based on population, you can enforce that. But you cannot enforce the provision which says you must train your child, you must educate all children. No wonder today Nigeria has over 15 million children out of school. This means our constitution provides an incentive to have more children, but provides no responsibility to train them. And this is why there is no doubt about the fact that this constitution is a maiming document. Let's put it that way. Yeah, where was I? Okay, so what I'm saying is that tactics aside, the strategy must be to reorganize ourselves. Individual smartness will not overcome our constraints. Only a re-engineering, of the structures within and without can resolve this mass issue. Both restructuring and full-blown nationhood are desirable. They are desirable means to an end. If the end itself has to take us to life more abundance, if the end itself is towards the land of Omoluabi, otherwise, who are we? What is Yoruba without Omoluabi? We might as well be any other. And anything we decide to choose, and any other path we decide to choose, we have to be careful. Now, the Yoruba nation has the potential to feed itself. It has capabilities. It has everything we need, including resources, especially human resources. But we must train these people. And this is the whole essence of Yoruba Koya. It is Yoruba Koya, Yoruba Koshe. That is the full call for it. So we fight against poverty as we fight and train for leadership. The Yoruba nation, as it is, needs to think. And that's why Ogunde in his song says, Yoruba Ronu. But it must move away from Yoruba Ronu alone, but Yoruba Yerawo. That is looking what? Yoruba Lati Ronu, Yoruba Lati Yerawo. There are certain terms that seem to have caused confusion amongst us. Terms like self-determination. As far as I'm concerned, self-determination has to do with being able to plan one's own course, both as an individual and as a collective. Self-determination also means freedom to make informed choices. But note, it has to be informed choices. There is a personal issue on self-determination, and there is a collective issue of self-determination. Ladies and gentlemen, self-determination starts with your right to choose. And your right to choose is your right to vote. Ladies and gentlemen, these days, I've had several of us saying we shouldn't participate in an election, we should not register in an election. It will, with all due respect to everyone who says so, it will be a monumental error that we'll never recover from. Why? Over 6 to 7 million young Yorubas have become eligible to vote between 2019 and now. Are you going to say that all those 6-7 million Yorubas should forget about registering, forgetting about knowing how to vote? If at all we go into referendum, by what register would we ascertain who can vote and who cannot vote? So self-determination actually starts with my power to vote, my franchise. So I will appeal to us that more than any time ever in this life of Yoruba or in the life of Nigeria, we need to register. Register to vote, register in mass. And our registration should be fueled with an objective. We want to replace a thinking. We want to ensure that the type of people that will speak for us, because at all times you are going to need representation, and representation cannot be imposed. It is only dictators that want to impose registration, that want to impose representation. We will have to make a choice at some point in time, and Yorubas must be ready for it. People also talk about restructuring. What does restructuring mean? It means repair. It means rearrange. It means redesign. It means reconstitute. Whatever it is, it means not staying in the same place. And so, Yoruba being independent itself, as far as my grandmother used to tell me something. As far as I'm concerned, everything is in stages. Even if we have a Yoruba nation, there has to be discussion. If we are going to restructure, we are going to have to discuss. There are going to be terms. What are the full implications of a Nigerians we all must realize how integrated we are. One of the Yoruba national anthem, the Yoruba anthem says that, one part of it says that, Awani ìmọ́lẹ̀ aláwọ̀ dúdú. You cannot be a light and not be confident enough to mingle. It is our light that is supposed to shine. So we need to strengthen ourselves and ensure that polish ourselves so that light should shine. My plea is that there are short-term approaches to things. There are mid-term approaches to things, and there are long-term approaches to things. By the special grace of God, we will not die. We shall live to declare the goodness of God in the land of the living. 2023 will meet us. It is a date. We will have a choice then to do whatever we want to do. Choose ever what we want to do. But we'll have to make that choice. When that time comes, we want to be ready. That is what I refer to as a 100-meter sprint. Now, restructuring is a must because based on everything we've said, but restructure will take process. I do not expect us to have any restructuring under this dispensation. Expecting anything from this dispensation is like talking to a tree. You will know how much response you will get from talking to a tree or talking to a brick wall. So people who say, well, you know, it may not, you get there, you go to the election, they will get to the Senate and they will change. Not if we make it a major agenda. Not if we ensure that we are all ready to vote. Not if, and I tell you, majority of Nigerians right now, we know the singular people who don't want to restructure. Those who didn't want to restructure before are now fully convinced that they are ready to restructure, knowing that under this structure, Nigeria is dying or even almost dead. Another plea I would want to ask is that people should appreciate between operational interventions from tactical intervention, from strategic interventions. At times, operational interventions appear, strategic interventions appear foolish to those who only think on the operational level. Another plea and prayer I want to make is this. If you are going to war, and all of a sudden, your enemies that are coming, they start fighting amongst themselves. What do you call that? Yoruba lórúkọ tá ń perú nǹkan bẹ́ẹ̀. Tára lé tó máa ń jà, tó máa ń bára wọn jà, tó máa ń para wọn lójú ọ̀tá. Èdì ló ń pè, èdì. The fact that we have a diversity of opinion in Yoruba land should not make it the reason why we should be divided. Diversity of opinion does not necessarily mean division, and it shouldn't be taken that way. What we need to do is consider, and I'm so grateful for Professor Banji Akitoye and for our elder, our daddy, our leader in Afenifere, Chief Ayo Adebanjo, who have said it clearly and repeatedly that we don't need to, I would think for him, but Ayo Adebanjo has said it several times. That is not against those who agitate for pulling out, because if we do not restructure, eventually Nigeria will break. Nobody wants to stay under the house that is falling. Also, Professor Akitoye has said very, very clearly that those who are agitating restructuring should not consider those who want to pull out as enemies. Those who want to say they want to pull out as enemies should not also see restructuring as those who are enemies to Yorubas. What is happening now is that threatening letters are flying around. People who want restructuring are being threatened by people who say they want Yoruba nation, and vice versa, to a point where someone even sent threatening letters. You know, someone says that it's going to be bloody. I mean, who wants blood spilled in his own homeland? Awolowo was smart enough to ensure that the Southwest never became a theater of war. And we thank God for his life. We thank God for his wisdom. But it'll appear that we are gradually forgetting this. So in short, what I'm saying, and I'm trying to round up, I'll say the major issue we face right now is security. Security. And you cannot afford to fight each other when you are under threat. When you are surrounded by enemies, the last thing you want to do is to fight each other. The second issue is that, well, whether we do restructuring, whether we go Yoruba nation, whichever we want to do, whether majority decides, whatever we want to do, we need to count the costs. And all those are means to an end. Don't forget, our end is life more abundant for Yorubas, the security of Yoruba lives, Yoruba lands, and Yoruba livelihoods. And so, whatever we need to do on security, whatever networks, but the first thing we need to do by God's grace and by all means is that we must stay united. Whatever we do, we must count the cost. Finally, let me just say, let us regionally integrate the states in the Southwest. There is a commission called the Dawn Commission, Development Agenda for Western Nigeria. It was developed in 2012, and we are trying to integrate us in trade, in infrastructure, in health, in environment, and a couple of other things. Finally, let us adopt Omoluabi principles as our ground norm. No nation stands without a ground norm. Thank you very much. God bless you.